Hey everyone, this is Dale from Dorkaholics.com. I'm here today with
Andy Lee. I play the role of Death Dealer on Shang-Chi, and I'm an actor in martial arts. For me, my journey started all way back when I got bullied a lot growing up. Coming home to watch Bruce Lee movies, Jackie Chan movies, watching martial arts movies, watching these heroes stand up to the bad guys. For someone like me who got picked on a lot, like that does something to you, you know? Like there's like a sense of empowerment when you watch these type of martial arts movies. So for me, I knew at a very young age, I wanted to change the world, and I knew I wanted to be just like the heroes I saw on screen. The way they impacted me, I want to impact people the same way in the future. So for me, I knew at a very young age I wanted to be a martial arts hero, and through the screen, just like how they were to me. It wasn't until high school when you start thinking about, oh, I'm about to graduate soon, what am I going to do with my life? That's when I really decided, okay, I'm going to pursue the film industry and be the next face, the next generation of martial arts action superstars. And, you know, initially, my parents were like, Asian parents, right? They were like, finish college first, you do what you want, right? So I did. I buckled down, I kept up with my training, and I finished college. And after that, I decided, you know, after I finished, they were like, okay, you do what you want, right? Right. I started a YouTube channel with me and my brothers, Martial Club. We still run it till this day. And we use this YouTube channel, social media, as a platform to kind of put ourselves out there and show the world what we can do. And, you know, fast forward years later, here we are, like, coming from YouTube fan to the MCU. So, you know, I really do give it to YouTube that it kind of gave us that platform to show the world who we are, and it kind of opened a lot of doors for us as well.
That's incredible. But I know beyond YouTube, that also opened doors for you. Like you've been in some other productions before Shang-Chi. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, getting into the film industry is not easy. Like I first started as a stunt performer. You know, I did my free work. I did low-end, you know, indie music videos for free commercials. You know, I did stunts. I was wrecking on hard concrete, like doing falls and everything for free. You know, that's like how that's how we call it, we pay our dues. And, you know, you network and eventually you move up and you meet the right people, and when the right opportunity comes, that's, you know, if you're lucky enough, you get the part, right? So for me, I wouldn't feel like, I've done a lot of my free stuff and putting our name out on YouTube, and I felt like it was YouTube that really kind of put our name out there. And the first real gig I felt like I did was with Jackie Chan, actually in 2017 or 18. It was a few years ago, but it was for a Wild Aid commercial. It was for a Jackie Chan commercial. It was Andy Chang, who's also one of the stunt coordinators on Shang-Chi. He's a Jackie Chan stunt team veteran, and he sought us out through YouTube, and he was like, hey, like, you know, I kind of need help, you know, we gotta do can you do some, help Jackie with his choreography, you know, just come up with some moves for this commercial. It wasn't much, but it was fun to do. And what's crazy was, I was coming up choreography for Jackie. I just copied his moves from his older movies. You know, the movies that I watched growing up, that's how I learned, you know. My brothers and I, me and my brothers, we learned from watching Kung Fu movies. So we just recycled his moves and I just retaught it back to him. And so that was what I say my first gig was. And then moving forward from there, I felt like with the whole Asian movement ramping up, like it definitely opened a lot of opportunities for us. And being there on YouTube, on social media, being present definitely helped us, you know, open a lot of doors and pursue these opportunities.
That's amazing that you're pretty much self-taught. You never went to get your black belt anywhere. You never were part of a dojo.
I trained, I mean, when I was little, I trained a little bit, like I'd say a few months. And then of course, later on, I trained with friends who are actually like coaches in that martial arts, but I never was really a disciple of any school, really. I would say 90% of what I have learned is pretty much self-taught.
Dude,
I will say though, like with the little formal training I had, it definitely laid a foundation for me to grow.
I'm amazed if you had like zero training because it looks seamless. Like from the more intense like Ip Man, what is it? The homages you make to like Ip Man, it just all looks so professionally done. But you're telling me that it comes from a good foundation in your youth, and you just layered that on with just studying the movies intense.
Yeah, because I feel like it depends. You practice martial arts, you practice for different reasons. Some people practice for health and fitness. Some people practice for self-defense. For me, it was always for movies. So the way, how you move, how you throw a punch, how you throw a kick, really kind of shows how you absorb information. And for me, it was like, if I'm gonna throw a punch, I'm gonna learn this punch for it to look good on screen. You know what I mean? So that's my exposure to martial arts initially was always martial arts movies. So I think that's how, for me, it absorbed. My initial exposure was Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. So I think at a youth, when you're like a sponge, your mind's like a sponge, you absorb, you learn easily. And if your first, perception of martial arts is martial arts movies, that's how you're just gonna absorb it and learn it.
Mm-hmm. And you write the scripts. I've seen you edit. Like, what don't you do?
That's actually something I take pride in. I feel like I relate most to Jackie out of like all the action heroes because he's a jack of all trades type of guy too. He's writer, director, he's an action star, he's a stunt choreographer, he's the editor. And I feel like coming up on YouTube, you don't really have much of a choice. You gotta learn how to do everything yourself, especially when we're broke Asian kids coming up in Westminster. We couldn't afford to hire editors, hire stuntmen, so we did everything ourselves. And what's cool is when you do this, you learn a lot. You learn a lot from the writer's side, the director's side, the martial arts side, the editing side, and even sometimes, like if I were to fight, let's say I'm leading, I'm starring, and I'm fighting my friends, right? Sometimes we would know how to trick shots where I have my friend jump in for me and I jump in for them and double for them because there's a certain move that I'm just better at, and so I would double for them sometimes and we could learn to hide it. And I think what's funny is they did that a lot in Hong Kong movies back in the day, and that's where I learned it from. Yeah.
I mean, that requires you to like recognize it. Like, did you know watching saying, hey, that's not the guy Jackie Chan was fighting, that's Jackie.
Exactly, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if you pay close attention, sometimes you'll see it.
Is it just recognizing the move or just noticing the subtle details and like the expression?
Both. I think, when you watch someone like Jackie Chan or Donnie Yen or Jet Li move, you absorb and you kind of know how they throw a punch, And if it's someone else doing it, you can kind of see it, And or if they're doubling for someone else, then you can kind of see it as well.
If you weren't in front of the camera, is there a role that you can see yourself filling, like as you continue this journey to entertainment?
You know what? Lately, and this goes in line with like the next step in my journey. We're in development for our own feature film because at the end of the day, we can go out and do these bigger Hollywood movies. We still want a passion project that kind of speaks for us, like kind of shows the world this is what we can do. So we're in development. Lately, I've been writing a lot, and I think for me, I feel like it's not acting, it's not performing, it's either writing or directing. I really enjoy the creative process because you can kind of go into filmmaking. You can work as a stuntman. Stuntmen are really good soldiers. They're good at taking orders and then taking the fall or taking the hit, taking the kick to the head, taking the punch to the face, hitting the floor. But I feel like for me, I have a creative craving. So beyond that, there's the acting side, there's writing, directing. I feel like if it's not acting or performing, it's probably writing, directing.
So you went to college, you got your degree. What did you actually study? I wonder if it was related to...
I studied kinesiology.
Okay.
So, it's kind of like sports science. And in a way, it taught me a lot. I actually felt like, in a way, since I wasn't really formally trained or a disciple of the school, I felt like being a kinesiology major actually taught me how to train myself. And from there, like, it's just willpower from there to kind of see how far you want to take it. Obviously, my parents weren't happy with it because kinesiology at the time was kind of hard to find jobs with, But they wanted me to major something in college, so I'm like, okay, I'll pick something I can actually use. In hindsight, I felt like I should have studied film, but I feel like things would have been different. You know, sometimes I think back, if I studied film, what would have been different if I did that? But now that I think about it, like a lot of my film training was through YouTube. Yeah. So getting into the industry, like when I see like I'm on a real set, I can make the connections. I can understand why this person's doing this, why they're doing this job, and how they all correlate together.
I kind of want to double click and talk about your parents. Like you said, they weren't supportive at first, but then they later were. Yeah. I'm wondering, like, way back when, like in your childhood, what if they played any influence on you wanting to do what you're doing now?
The only influence they played initially was feeding me martial arts movies. That was like, for them, that was their biggest mistake. But for me, it was like, that was the greatest gift you could have given me, you know? Because then, you know, later, living under an Asian household, my parents, they've struggled to come here from Vietnam, you know? Like, they tell me stories from coming from an embattled country, and they tell me, they traumatize me with these stories. Like for example, I'll just really quick story. My dad, like he got caught trying to flee, and they put him in a concentration camp. He was literally scrubbing the bottoms of toilets with a gun to his head in the concentration camp. He would tell me these stories, and you know, when your parents traumatize you with these stories, you want to do something greater with your life. They came over here, you want to do something big now. They wanted me to become doctor, lawyer. Now, for me, when they fed me martial arts movies, that's where I found an outlet to channel the fire, you know? So initially, they knew like doing martial arts in itself was really hard to sustain a living. And especially doing martial arts for film, breaking into the industry is very, very hard. You don't get anything for years, you know? And eventually it's just perseverance that kind of opens up doors for you eventually. And it wasn't until very recently, I feel like, the last couple of years when opportunities start opening up, when I started working for Marvel, when I started working with Jackie, and they start seeing, okay, like, you can finally make something out of this. So it wasn't until recent.
What kept you going? Was it your mission to live a life intent on inspiring others to live passionately?
Exactly that, actually. You know, when you're with parents who initially don't want you to do it, and you know, I love my parents, so for them, it's kind of hard to, you know, think like that when your parents are like breathing down your neck every day, like, when are you gonna get a real job? When are you gonna get a real job? But like, something, every time I pulled away, it didn't feel right. And as soon as it didn't feel right, I just went back to it. And I knew that like, in the long run, like, sure, you may be struggling now, but eventually it's going to pay off. And when it does, it's going to pay off big.
Someone told me that you've actually done work over in Vietnam, something that we wouldn't be able to find on IMDb, but what was that like? What were the films about? How did you get in touch with Vietnam?
At the time, and it's still on my agenda, I've always wanted to represent for the Vietnamese people. You know, I'm from Vietnamese heritage, and I want to show the world what Vietnamese can do. At the time, this was 2016, I believe, on my agenda, I wanted to go back to Vietnam and, you know, blow up over there. I wanted to act over there and kind of get my foot in the door. So in 2016, I went to Vietnam to work as a stuntman, and that was just initially to get my foot in the door. And yeah, that's still on my agenda. We're in development right now, currently, for a project in Vietnam, a Vietnamese American crossover. So that's part of the next step for me right now in this journey.
Is there anything inherently different about working over in Vietnam versus a Western production? In
America, there's unions that protect you. You never. If you're a stunt performer, you're a stunt performer. If you're a director, you're a director. You're actor, you're actor. You know, you're PA, you're PA. In Vietnam, I feel like anything kind of goes. You know, the work hours, you know, like over here, you have limits, like 10-hour limit, 12-hour limit days. In Vietnam, like I've worked a 24-hour day, slept for 6, and then worked another 24-hour day.
Oh my God.
And you know, as part of the stunt team, like we were also able to like grab the camera and shoot the action, you know? So it was more free for all, but I feel like that keeps a lot of the fun in it, you know? And it's a part of the art, I feel like. And I think in that sense, in that type of environment, I learned a lot also.
It sounds really similar to your YouTube experience. Where
Exactly. I think with YouTube, it's always a place I can kind of call home. You know, sometimes working on, you know, the bigger American projects, they're not always the passion project. I'll do them if I believe in them. Sometimes I feel like it's just nice to just come back home. So the YouTube channel will always be there for the fans. And right now, since we're pushing to do more feature films, it's kind of like becoming the diary for our fans to kind of see how far we've gone and how much further we're gonna go.
Paper Tigers is, last time I checked, number 6 on Netflix.
Yeah.
And that movie it's a good, lighthearted, like martial arts comedy in a sense.
Yep.
And what I really like about that film is that to me it's very meta, because you, your brother, and his name's Philip, right?
Philip, yeah.
Philip, you guys play 3 young martial artists who don't belong to a dojo, and even more so, you guys belong to the social media generation.
Yep.
And when the movie opens up, you guys are taking selfies at a funeral.
Yeah.
Like, you're not like that at all. You're very respectful. I just saw you say "excuse me" to a grandmother.
Yeah.
Walking through the camera. Like, did you have any relationship to that character you played?
Definitely the part. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to like whip a phone out and take selfies at a funeral, but I do feel like the characters, they kind of fall in line with how we are in real life. You know, we're martial arts orphans. We don't have like proper teachers to like kind of. We're not disciples of real school. We're self-taught. We're from the streets. And where I liked in that movie was that like the characters were kind of representing us already. And I don't know if you noticed the big banner on the wall in the pool said Martial Club. So that was like a whole, like, they kind of paid respects to like the where we came from. And even down to the wardrobe, like they let us in the wardrobe room, they're like, really? Okay. And working on the choreography, the action, they were really open to us because they wanted us to, be ourselves. Mm-hmm. The fact that it was martial arts, the story was centered around martial arts. I was 100% behind that because for me, I wanted to put martial arts back on the map. It's been Martial Club's mission statement from day one. So anything to push that movement forward, I'll be 100%.
It's only natural that Shang-Chi's coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And that movie not only is supposed to be like the Black Panther for the Asian community, but also it's featuring martial arts in such a way that is inspiring, I think, is doing what you're saying, bring martial arts to the forefront.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like kind of what you just did already, like how Shang-Chi plays into your mission?
I'm first and foremost a martial artist. And the fact that this film represents Asians and features kick-ass martial arts, and it's gonna change the world, I'm very proud to be behind it and be a part of it.
You came from the YouTube platform, and now you're breaking into like the mainstream channels out there, like film, like television, like Netflix. Like, do you have any advice for people that are on the YouTube journey and like things you've learned along the way to help you get to where you are now? Whether you want to stay on YouTube or expand beyond that.
Eventually, like, YouTube is a stepping stone for sure. Obviously, we always wanted to do film. But YouTube will always be a home for us where we can, go back, do a passion project, and document our journey for the fans. And if it's anything I learned in this long journey, is there are gonna be a lot of rough times. I've been through so many times where I just wanted to quit. And sometimes you put your blood, sweat, and tears into a passion project you put out on YouTube, and and if it doesn't, like, don't let the numbers, the views, like, get to you. I think you just really gotta believe in yourself, believe in your art, believe in your dream, believe in the journey. And as long as you are persistent and you believe wholeheartedly and you just go, regardless of, the fallbacks or what anyone says, there's no way you can succeed. And that I know for sure because I feel like at this point, something is starting to finally pay off. And I feel like from here, it's just momentum and we gotta ride it forward. And yeah, that's like the biggest advice I gotta say, just keep at it.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
Where can fans follow you?
You can find us on, our main platform is YouTube, so youtube.com/Martial Club, and on Instagram @Martial Club Official. That's where you can find us. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
อย่าเธอแบบมันนั่งไวพิมพ์
sorry sorry
อย่าห้องเหี้ย
à dạ không thấy được
อย่าห้องก็ดี